Welcome to the A New Insight podcast, empowering and inspiring your journey to optimal health. Hosted by Dr. Supatra Tovar, clinical psychologist, registered dietitian, fitness expert, and author of Deprogram Diet Culture. Rethink your relationship with food, heal your mind, and live a diet-free life. I follow my guests' journey to optimal health, providing you with the keys to unlock your own wellness path. Tune in and evolve with us. Welcome back, everyone. We're back for the second half of this incredible interview with workplace culture innovator and founder of Executive Moms, Alexis Starks. Woo, that was a good first half. Woo, she gave
That
us
was.
really thought-provoking insight into woman's self-esteem,
Mhm.
self-confidence, and self-worth, and how important that is in terms of negotiating what you want and need in your
Mhm.
workplace when you're getting into a job and when you're trying to negotiate leave and coming back and re-entering the workplace.
Yes.
I want to pick Alexa's brain a little bit more on the work that she does with the leaders and the bosses and what kinds of systemic issues and problems we're seeing right now in the workplace. I hear tons of toxic workplace culture stories. What is the main issue and problem going on when you see a lot of dysfunction in the workplace?
Oh god, I mean, there's so much right now. I think a lot of it is well, I don't know where to start, but the first one I think I'll start with is this constant always on availability, and that really impacts parents hard because they can't be always on 100% of the time. We have additional responsibilities. And there's this expectation of overworking and overextending yourself and ending up burning out, and that's almost seen as a badge of pride. And when I was in my early 20s, there's so many industries, I worked in advertising, and it was this culture of, show up early, work till it's late, and, then maybe there's networking events, and I was always on my phone, right? Like, you get a ping, someone slacks you on your phone, immediately respond. And someone sends you an email at 7 a.m., great, it's on my phone, send an email back. But you can't do that when you have kids and you are managing getting up toddlers and getting them ready for daycare and school and breakfast and dressed, which is always a fight. And same thing in the afternoon and evening with dinner and bedtime and bath time and 58 stories is a nightmare. And so it's just very unrealistic once you become a parent to have that culture and that normalization. And we see that with a lot of leaders in the C suite as well, setting that example and leadership and your managers and managers not speaking up when they see someone on their team doing that as well. And, when I worked in corporate America, I was always telling my team, hey, if I may send you an email late at night because that's when I'm working after I put my kids down. Please don't respond to it if you don't need to. And I will tell you, this is not important. You can respond to me in the morning. It's never an emergency. Nobody's ever dying because you didn't respond to my email. And so that's a big part of the toxic work culture right now is this always on, rushed, fake urgency availability. Um,
Where does that come from? Because I mean, you talk about it with parents, and absolutely parents
mm,
can't handle that, but I just don't think people
yeah.
can handle that. They may adjust and they may be 24/7 on, but I think that that is one of the greatest leaders to burnout, mental health issues, and more toxic dynamics
Mhm.
between people. Was it the advent of social media, people being on their phones? How long has it been like this in corporate America?
I mean, I don't think it's been that long in my lifetime. I've seen no cell phones and telephones to now it's in your pocket, always on at your fingertips, right? And so previously, when I would leave my laptop at work and my computer at work, I was done. I was checked out, right? And no one was messaging me. I wasn't responding to things. And then eventually they were, and I had brought my laptop home. Eventually, I put Slack on my phone and Gmails on my phone. And so it's definitely been within my generation that we've seen that transition from when you're offline, you are offline. When you leave the office, you're out of office. To now, just because you're at home doesn't mean you still can't respond to my message. And so it's definitely been an increase with the technological boom, I would say.
And COVID. I think
Yeah.
COVID drastically changed how available we were because we were at home and online for our jobs if we were lucky to have that happening.
Mhm.
But if you were in a corporate environment, that meant greater access to you 100% of the time when you were home. How has that shifted now that people are going back into the workplace a little bit more?
I mean, I hate the return to office mandates because they're so hard and they're honestly not rooted in any real data. In fact, we've seen the proof of the opposite that actually, if you can work from home, you actually are more productive and get more work done because you're less chit chatting, less time commuting. You can actually spend more time with your kids. And um, so I think it's companies wanting to have that visibility of their people in person, but not for good reasons. Maybe for lack of trust and for um, just showmanship, right? They're paying for a big building. I know real estate is important. They're holding on to real estate so it doesn't lose money if no one's in it, right? Um, so I think you end up with a bunch of people being forced to go back into work, burning out more because now they're losing time commuting, losing time with their kids, but then they're still expected to now also respond on their phone once they get home because they have Gmail on their phone or Outlook, and they have Slack or Teams on their phone. So there's no good excuse to not respond, even if it's 30 minutes later, you know? It's like, but
Mm.
it's there, you could. And so you end up just with just a really negative feedback loop, honestly.
Yes. Give me, if you can, the kind of psychological profile of the type of boss that is what you described. I need to see you. I don't trust you. Get back into the workplace. And give me a picture of the type of boss, the bosses that you see that are most successful or that you've maybe coached into better success and a happier workforce. Who's the get back in the office kind of boss?
I think it's a lot of those return to office mandates come from high up. So it's not necessarily like, a midline manager is saying, "Hey, I need you back." It's usually pushed from the top way down. Um, but it comes from a lot of lack of trust and honestly lack of self-trust. If you don't trust yourself and don't have confidence in yourself, you're going to portray that and push that out onto all your other direct reports and your team. So the biggest thing I see is that actual like I haven't trained my team enough to know how to do their job, and so I'm questioning if they're doing their job, right? And so a lot of this comes down to, well, how good of a manager are you? If you're a good manager and you've created an environment where your team can come to you when they have questions, or you've created an environment where they can track their productivity and show they're getting their work done, there shouldn't be any question about them working remotely or hybrid at least. So it's really when you are not a good manager and you've created a poor cultural environment, and that's a reflection of you.
I also think that that's been passed down. If you look
Yeah.
at a lot of business schools, there's a whole set of different types of leadership styles, and certainly that's more of an authoritarian
Yeah.
type of leadership. And there's plenty of data to show that that doesn't necessarily give you a better product or more, productive workforce or anything like that. Being more of a democratic leader and inviting more conversations from your workforce
Mhm.
tends to work better. What have you noticed? People who are mandating people back to work, do they follow that more authoritarian type of style?
Absolutely. And it's something that's just been conditioned into us. I mean, I know we talked about conditioning, but from a society, if you look at the vast majority of movies and shows, it's authoritarian dictatorship type of leadership in most companies and corporations. And so it's normalized. It's normalized to have a shitty boss. It's normalized to have a toxic work culture. It's normalized and accepted. Oh, it's in all the movies. We see it all the time. And so men and women just think that's the way to be a leader. They get promoted, and their boss does it, and their boss does it. And they think if I'm going to get promoted, I just got to follow the suit of what everyone else is doing. And so it gets ingrained in the culture. And it's hard to step out of that line and be the more servant leadership type of person because now you're unusual, right? And maybe you still have great results and everything, but you don't fit the same mold as the rest of the C-suite or the rest of the top executive team. So it's definitely been conditioned into us hard for decades.
Yes, at least
Yeah.
hundreds of years at least. I mean, ever since there was a boss. But give me a picture then of how you coach leaders to become better leaders. And I would also love to explore. So this is the second part, and I'll remind you of it because I know it's like, well, but I want to know what kind of culture is formed from the authoritarian. Like, what kind of inter-workplace toxic dynamics do you see from authoritarian leaders? And what do you see in the culture from leaders that you coach or that you know of that are more on the democratic side? So first, describe for me that kind of ideal servant leader or democratic type leader that you either coach or you know of.
Yeah, so most of the people I coach are working moms or working parents, and when I do workshops, the number one thing that I lead with when I'm talking to managers is compassion and empathy. Everything is going to flow 1,000 times easier when you're coming from a place of compassion and recognizing that at the end of the day, we're all humans. And every single person will go through something in their life eventually that requires someone else to be compassionate and recognize that you're going through something. And that work is just a fraction of the day, but your life is 24/7. And so there's never a good solid line of here's my human life and then here's my worker life. It all bleeds together. And so everything I talk about is always coming from a place of compassion and empathy where it can be used, right? And so a lot of the working moms that I talk to have that increased empathy naturally from becoming a mother. And so it increases their leadership capabilities. And we see that. And you can just Google top leadership traits or top leadership strengths and skills and Forbes and Inc. And everyone's going to give you like empathy, emotional intelligence, compassion, and resilience. And it's like, mom. For all of those are skills that you develop in motherhood. Maybe it's not at 6 weeks postpartum, but it's certainly through toddlerhood. I can tell you for a fact that I have all of those from dealing with 2 toddlers.
Yes, so, which confirms my theory if women ran the world.
Yes. Oh my God. I could literally
a whole different place.
We could do a whole episode. We could do a whole show just about if women ran the world, how much better it would be.
Oh my dear Lord, come on. Yeah. Yes, I love to hear that that's the top thing that you try to emphasize is compassion and empathy. What a relief. And when you do have that for your workforce, so then what does the workforce look like compared to under the toxic, authoritarian, non-compassionate leader? What kind of workforce do you see?
Yeah, you see people who are trusted. You see people who give trust and can take trust, and people who don't abuse that trust. You see people who can respect you and acknowledge your capabilities, even if you're struggling and having a hard day. You see that psychological safety where you can talk to your manager when you're having a rough time and need some flexibility to manage your kids' daycare sickness this time. And I will say the thing about compassion is the best thing about compassion is you don't have to understand what the mother or the parent is experiencing, right? That's empathy. You don't have to understand it. Compassion is acknowledging that they're having a struggle, they're having a hard time, and you can react with compassion. And
Mhm.
so, in stark contrast is that authoritarian leadership, which creates a not a psychologically safe space. You get people who are afraid to speak up, afraid to ask for help because they get penalized. They get sidelined for those promotions. They get their capabilities questioned. Oh, can she even do her job? Oh, is she even working if she's going to work remotely? Right. So you end up with a workforce who's afraid of being human, to be honest.
Yes, and so I really wanna explore too the dynamics between the workforce that can come forward under an
Mhm.
authoritarian leadership. What I tend to see is competitiveness,
Yeah.
backstabbing, bullying,
Mhm.
gossiping. What drives that in the workforce? Do you think it's fear alone?
I think fear is a really big factor, but I think, like, I don't know if this sounds really cliche, but I think pain and hurt, when you're struggling, you end up pushing that onto others, right? You end up pushing that pain
Mm,
outwards. If you're having a really hard time, you start to project that negativity outward sometimes. You're experiencing toxic a toxic environment with your manager, and maybe you lash out at someone else accidentally,
mhm.
but maybe you just that happens, right? And so it just kind of, again, that negative feedback loop, it just spirals out of control. But fear's a big factor there. Fear and pain and just negativity has a way of eating through everything.
Yeah, and I think too, it's just we're also conditioned. This is just in general. This is not just in the workplace, but we're conditioned to think that we're competing with
Mhm.
others, that resources are limited, that we have to claw our way to this and that. And that fear-based scarcity mindset is not, I was gonna say addictive, it's not addictive, but kind of, it certainly it it certainly feeds off of fear, feeds off of fear, feeds off of scarcity, feeds off of negativity,
Mhm.
and that's what we're seeing in so much of our culture.
Yeah.
But when you train leaders in this more servant-based leadership, what happens in the workforce itself? What do you see changing in terms of the culture?
Yeah, just a lot more positivity, safety. You see women who don't feel that they're forced to quit their job and can stay.
Mm,
You feel that you're supported by your manager. And so you see women getting that promotion. You see those moms getting a promotion, taking on more projects, getting that visibility that's important
mm,
to their growth and career
mm.
path. In the report we did, 40% of women left their job after having a baby, but 97% said they wanted to stay in their job if they were supported.
Wow.
So women want to stay. They don't wanna feel forced out and feel that they have to choose and make that choice. And so that's a huge factor that they want to stay, but they
Yeah.
need that support, and so you get when you do provide that support, you get people who are engaged, people who are more
Mm,
effective, more productive, they're more
mm.
confident and can show up as such, and so you have a much better work environment, but company culture and results as well.
Wow.
If all they care about is results and bottom line, the data backs a supportive work culture as having better results and output and one that's negative work culture, so
Oh my gosh, yes, and I do think when leaders model this behavior,
mhm.
it trickles down. And I think we can look at, even if it was divisive during Obama's presidency, say that,
Mhm.
there was still a lot of divisiveness. You saw so much less nastiness out in a lot of the country. Granted, that wasn't 100%, the case, and I
Yeah.
don't want to like dive into politics, although we could. But you saw the difference in even his own administration with
Hmm.
that style of leadership as opposed to this very punitive, you know, um, more nasty, mean-spirited culture. And we need to really take a look at that and see, is that, which one benefits us the most? And I think it's having a more egalitarian, a more,
Hmm.
um, inclusive environment that helps people to feel like they have a voice. You have talked about psychological safety, and I think
Hmm.
that's a whole other podcast in and of itself. But
Yeah.
give a few of the tenets of psychological safety to our listeners out there so that they really fully understand what bosses and managers can learn and how they can create a psychologically safe workplace.
Yeah, this is important, because it's not always an easy thing to teach, especially not in like one short half day long workshop.
No.
But psychological safety, I think, starts with you as the manager being open and leading with that compassion. And when you show to your team that you are open and compassionate, that signals to them that it's okay for them to be open, right? If you can model that to your team and say, "Hey guys, I've got XYZ going on with my kid at this time," right? I have
Mm.
daycare, sickness, whatever XYZ things going on outside of work. That makes it safe for them to also acknowledge what they have going on outside of work. And that starts to build that psychological safety that it's okay for them to speak up. And
Mm.
similarly, they can lead the conversation with a team member about, "Hey, I just want to level set with you. If you ever are starting to feel burnt out, please feel free to talk to me and we can talk about how we can delegate the workload," right? Giving that example, giving that space where even if it's not at that moment, that they know they can come and talk to you and that
Mm.
they're not going to get penalized for it. So giving examples and recognizing where you think your team might be struggling. And so yeah, it's again, it all stems from that compassion, I think, as the first step.
Yes, being open. So if you are a manager or a boss and you're listening right now, being open is one of the best things that you can do to create an environment that supports conversations and communication rather than a very scared workforce that is afraid to speak up, that may not actually deliver what you want them to deliver, and
Mhm.
certainly will not create the loyalty that you're hoping for
Yep.
in your environment. So I love that. Give me two
Mhm.
tips for anyone who is a parent who's about to go on leave or come back from leave. What can they do to ensure that they have the most supportive environment, even if they may have to speak up to
Mhm.
a less democratic boss?
Yeah, so first thing I would say is planning. As much planning ahead of time as you can, the better. I always say that if you're gonna plan your maternity leave or plan how you wanna return to work, start it 2 months, at least maybe bare minimum, a month before you go on leave so that you can
Mhm.
start having those conversations about handoffs and transitions and, negotiating how you wanna come back to work, hybrid, full-time, part-time, all of those things. So planning ahead. And at the end of the day, this comes down to you are the most important thing here. You and your baby and your family is so much more important. And you will very quickly realize that once you have that baby, that especially if you start burning out, that that's always going to be the first priority. So don't be afraid to have those conversations, but you need to have them because your manager can't guess what you need, and if you are struggling silently and thinking that you're gonna just suffer through it quietly, it's only gonna make it harder and worse for you. And so speak up for yourself, and your manager can support you if they know what you need.
I love all of that. Plan. You can even plan when you're getting the job.
Yes, yes.
Find out, educate yourself, really understand what your leave is all about before you even start your work,
Mhm.
and just know you can negotiate anything. And
Yep.
when you do understand your worth and why they're even interviewing you in the first place, and you stand behind that, you can advocate for yourself early. But even if you didn't do that, you can always advocate
Absolutely.
for yourself. Always. Even if it means that you might not last long in that job, you may find a different job that is a better fit for you if
Mhm.
you speak up.
Definitely.
So, how can people find you, Alexa? You're amazing. How do they work with you? Give us all the
Yeah.
411.
Yeah, so I'm all over LinkedIn, just my name, Alexa Starks. I'm on Instagram, alexa.starks. My website is executivemoms.co. If you are interested in coaching, you can book a 30-minute free discovery call with me. I have several resources you can find, like a maternity leave plan or a pumping plan or scripts about advocating for yourself. So it's all on my website, executivemoms.co. That's .co.
I love it. And I just think you are a wealth of information. And I don't think there's enough people like you out there who are advocating for moms and really and parents and providing actionable steps for them to navigate through something really complex
Mhm.
and life-changing, of course, when you have children, and that helps empower women to return to the workplace, but with a supportive environment. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing out there. I'm
Thank
sorry you had to struggle in order
you.
to find that path, but oftentimes
It's
the struggle is what leads
Mhm.
us to what we're really meant to do and who we're meant to help.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining the A New Insight podcast. I hope you join us next time for the next exciting interview. And thank you, Alexa.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning into the A New Insight podcast. Please remember the contents shared on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. You can find us anywhere podcasts are streaming, on YouTube at my.anu.insight and at anu-insight.com under the A New Insight podcast tab. And follow us on our socials at my.anu.insight on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more updates. Tune in next time and evolve with us.